the men should also go much more in parental leave. I think this would be something we really need in this German-speaking environment, that also men, have more muscles on this and are courageous also to show that they have this human-centric view and that they are interested in other people and their needs and their character.
Get Inspired, your podcast for more inspiration and your business talk about how to connect, how to empower, and how to get inspired. With amazing guests interviewed by Ricarda, our founder of My Collective.
When it comes to almost all our topics in My Collective, advancing your career while starting a family, or fighting for more representation of women in boardrooms, or being unafraid to ask for promotions, Corinna Schittenhelm has been there and done that. She's a trailblazer for many of us, and now she's changing things at the board level. And today she's going to give us some of her insights and advice as someone who's made it to the top. Corinna, welcome to My Collective. I'm so excited that you're with us. You're a member of the executive board at Schaeffler, responsible for human resources and sustainability. I've previously been with Siemens and Osram, and I'm sure lots of other incarnations that you might share with us in the talk. But I am really excited that you're with us because you're here in our Impulse session that we do at the My Collective Leadership Program, because we would love to speak and get to know role models in the industry, women who've made it to the board level, but I'm sure you haven't been born as a board member. So I would like to actually kickstart the discussion here is, when was the first time that you actually took over a leadership role and how did that happen?
Yes, so thinking back, I guess I was maybe about 28, 29. It was before 30. I was already with Siemens, so maybe just, to look what I have studied. I did business administration, but before I actually studied, and I think this is always relevant also for this topic, I left Germany to spend time abroad. So this is very long time. And when I tell the year, I really feel like a groovy. So it was 68 when I did my Abitur. And then I decided I want to go to Canada. So I left first for a year. I wanted to stay a year in Toronto. It turned out 2 years. I only came back because my parents asked me, they said, now you need to come back. So I spent another year in Paris. And then I actually went to university and had a degree in business administration. So at this time, it was quite unusual to have such a long period in different countries. And I think it was very much helping me to see at this young stage that actually women, and I think it was also the countries I decided to stay, so Canada and France at this time, were already countries where you saw actually women in leadership positions, or in really active business life. So I think this is just important to know. And then, after my studies, I spent 2 years in a bank in Munich, did a traineeship, and then actually left to Siemens. And there it went quite fast. So I was just before 30 when I took over my first leadership position with a very small team, about maybe 5 ladies at this time, because it was already HR, interesting enough. But also, special, I would say all the ladies were older than me. So I was the young kid on the block with, not even 30, but I still, have some contact with some of them. So it was a very good time being in this position. It was challenging, but I like to think back at this time, very different.
Yeah, the first leadership role. Yeah. So you said the influence of Canada and France. I mean, my question would have been, what are your role models? But maybe do you have role models that you saw at this time as a young leader? Or was it more seeing more women in the industry, in the jobs, in the companies that you were working with? Or is it more the system, or is it sort of specific people who inspired you to go that way?
I think both, I think I actually felt, in especially in Canada, because I stayed actually in a family where the mother actually, and I took care of her first baby. She was at this time already a very famous doctor. Actually, she was a surgeon, which is also quite unusual. Even at this time, it was unusual in Canada. And for me, I would say she was actually a real role model, sometimes in a way also scary because she was such a tough lady, very human. And when I say was, she's, fortunately still alive. And also with her, I'm still in touch. But, she was very tough also with herself, because being a surgeon, you have surgery also in night, you have to go if they call you. So I was watching her all the time when I was staying her, and she fascinated me, I must say. I think she was a real role model. What could be possible if you are in an environment which let you grow and live your dream also, because this was her dream. And the second role model, and him I don't want to forget at this interview, because I think he was also very important, was actually my father. So he unfortunately is not alive anymore since a few years, but I often think back at him. He was for me very important, because even he was born, 31. So in times where women had, their roles, my father was always a person who was very much equally treating also women. Women, men, there was no difference for him. I think I really admire him much more now, even since I see how different he was in his time. So he was a great person to grow up with, because he also gave me always the feeling everything is possible also when you're a girl or, a woman.
Yeah. So I have the feeling, and this is also why we do these impulse sessions actually, and why role models like you to come and talk to us, because you need to see that it's possible. You need to see it, and you need to see it in different forms and shapes. And our idea here is there's not going to be a perfect role model for you, but there will be lots of them. And you can always take a little bits and pieces from everyone and kind of model your own role model, your own perfect role model together, the way that you want it and the way it works and helps for you. And then again, we do that all and we focus on parental time, because the idea is during parental time, a lot of the time you think about your purpose and your job and your purpose as a mother. So a lot of things change. Now, can I ask you how that time was for you? I know you have children. Can you share a little bit of how your parental leave was, and if you took any, or what were your plans were, what your fears were? How did that work out for you?
Yeah. When I actually joined Siemens, and had this first leadership role, I felt, I want to go again abroad. Yeah. So I had the possibility, and Siemens was at this time, still now, it's a great employer, but they gave me the opportunity to go to China. So I was about 32, I think, when I left to Beijing. And this is actually when I met my husband. Yeah. So again, I think talking about parental leave, it's always very important, with whom you have actually your children.
Yes.
Yeah? So beside my father, I really have to emphasize also my husband. So we met in China. He is not German, so he comes from a different country, and we fell in love, and we decided that we want to stay together. But then my delegation actually was up. So I thought it may be difficult if he comes with me to Germany, because Germany is not an easy country still, I think, to really integrate. Also, if, culture-wise, you're a bit different. So we actually had a great opportunity, or I had a great opportunity to go directly from China to the US. And we had the possibility to actually found a family while I was again on delegation when we were in San Diego, California. Great place really to found a family. I was there for 3 years delegation, and our first child was born, our first daughter. I must say the colleagues in Germany, I think at this time they were a bit shocked when they found out, I was on delegation and I was pregnant. That was, I think, for them not so easy to digest. But, my colleagues in the US, and again, it's such a big cultural way how also family life and also parental leave is treated, they had not a problem at all. I remember my boss at this time, my woman boss, my lady boss, she said, Corinna, I think it's great that you're pregnant. If you want to stay and, have your baby here, you're very much, welcome to do so, but you have to do it the American way, Here,
so you became an American working mom.
you just work, until the due date, and then you have, all what you get, what the insurance is paying for. So that was the choice. And I must say, I took this choice, it was really a choice at the end, going back to Germany, having all what is offered in the system here. And I had my daughter. I actually worked until, just a few days before she was born. And then the insurance, at this time, it was actually paid vacation by the insurance. And it was 6 weeks. And then my husband, he actually then took over. So I left after 6 weeks back to work. Obviously, no part-time work possible in the US. Being on a delegation was just not feasible. But what I really appreciated was the work day. So you start, your work day at 8 or 8:30, but you also go home then, and you can be sure that you're home by 5. Yeah. So we had a very special first parental leave time, which was, mostly parental leave for my husband, being at home with a baby.
Culturally different also, in a cultural setting.
Everything. And, also looking back, it was a real challenge because it was our first child. We didn't have family around, but I think it really made us also sticking much more together. And yeah, so that was my first parental leave. Then after, my delegation, I came back to Germany. Also, my husband, actually, he took an MBA, so he was a bit longer in the US. He came back also with me. So we are now here in Germany since then. And then I had actually made quite a big career jump, interesting enough, even so with this pregnancy, as I said, was not so easy. First
this is actually very interesting. You're going for a career move right after parental leave. That's an interesting part.
But it was like this. I was actually myself surprised, but I was actually very lucky that the boss who then, interviewed me and had a position open, he actually was surprised how I managed all this. And he liked very much my experience in China, in the US. So he was more under the impression she gets the chance and then we see how it works. And I took the chance. I thought nothing to lose. And it actually worked out quite well. So this was really one of my biggest jumps ahead, even so I was not really aware. I realized actually after I then started this job that it was a big jump. We then, had our first daughter. It was not so easy having really childcare. I remember it was the first actually, childcare group where we tried to get in, but then we also hired au pair to really manage this. So my husband also started to work in Germany. And then I was very much actually the one who wanted to have a second child because I was raised as the only one and I just felt it's not the best choice. So then we decided for a second baby. And the parental leave in Germany was interesting when you have the experience in the US because I had this very good job and I really wanted also to keep this job, and I didn't have the feeling having one child then the second child should now be the reason why I stopped being, in this very big responsibility. So I talked to this boss who actually hired me in the first place, and I told him, and I still remember the discussion, I told him I'm pregnant, and great guy, he congratulated me and he said, and you, the only thing I ask you, please come back. Don't keep it short and come back. My two girls, and that's not very long a time ago, when they asked me, so Mama, how long did you actually stay home with me? And I had to tell my second one, it was only 3 months. she was a bit disappointed because obviously everybody around her, friends, they discussed that usually moms stay home much longer with their children. So I didn't stay home quite, a lot, just a legal 3 months actually. Yeah.
It's really interesting because I can share and I can relate a lot to this because I also had my first 2 children abroad in India and came back, and the third child was then the first actual parental leave in Germany, and that's very different, of course.
Very different.
But now I think in your case it's also different because now you're also in a leadership position now. So how does that perspective on parental leave change when you are in a leadership position, especially with responsibilities in the HR segment? What is your perspective now, or can you maybe give some advice also to our participants, but also maybe generally to young women who want to go for a career and who are either just about to board parental leave or are on parental leave? What would be your advice? Would you share the advice of your previous boss, keep it short and come back? Or can you elaborate a little bit on what's your take on this?
Interesting question. I would really say take all the time you need. Yeah. So for me, it was also the environment. It was the situation, the family situation, the choices I made. I think it was not always easy also for me, to really, with the first one after 6 weeks, even my husband was home, I was very much emotional about this step. And the second one, I think, was even more difficult, but it was just, it was the decision and I knew it will work out. We had with the second one actually hired in a nanny who actually stays up to now with us, now 16 years. Same lady. She's now taking care of my mother a bit. So it was also all worked out very well, but it was always very important that, for the girls, everything is settled and organized and they don't have any disadvantages because they are for many, many hours in a daycare center, Even so, also this can work out. So I don't really want to judge anything which is done because it always depends the situation you're in. But I would, from today, when I have those discussions, not only with women, also with men, actually much more men, I really encourage them also, to take time off. I make them sometimes, the men, and here I have lots of men, obviously, who have babies, and I make them taking time off. Yeah, because I think
fantastic.
It's for both really important. And for the mothers, I think if they want to take a year, they should take a year. But if they feel 6 months, that's fine, and they come back with less hours. I think it's really something you have to discuss at home and then, clarify at the workplace. But I don't want to advise now because it was my choice that it's exactly the way you should do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I totally agree on the men's side. We have now pushed this topic quite significantly with all the companies that are with us, that we want them to also send men to our program because it's not about mothers, it's about fathers and mothers taking parental leave. And the more men take parental leave, the more normal it becomes to actually have a time out in your career and be able to come back to the career track. So that I totally agree. But now this is also kind of a good handover to the diversity strategies and HR strategies that you actually do at Schaeffler. Schaeffler is not necessarily the typically female-dominated environment. And you just said that there are a lot of men working around you. So can you share a little bit why you chose Schaeffler and also what's your ambition in the diversity field? And I know you're doing a lot, but I would love to hear it from you.
Why did I choose Schaeffler? It's actually an easy answer, and I hope it doesn't come across, schräg. It's really, I was working in Siemens for almost 12 years for executive board members. So for very long, I was, exactly one level below. And I think I learned a lot. It's a really big company where you learn a lot when you work for board member. And I had all different kinds of board members. And when I left Siemens and I went to Osram, again, I was CHRO, but not on a board level. So Schaeffler offered me the unique chance, and now I'm here 6 years. So luckily, since the last couple of years, it's lots of movement on board level, also because of all the discussion and the quotas. But, 6-7 years ago, it was still, there was not so much opportunity and it was not something you could count on. for me, it was really the next step I wanted to go. And Schaeffler offered me this step, interesting enough, a very, engineering, men-dominated company. They said, we have a lot of transformation. We think you have a lot of transformation experience because you have been in businesses which have changed over time and you have been in different environments. So they took, a big risk in hiring a woman which doesn't know the environment, the culture. So I would say both sides actually took a risk. It was exactly the right thing to do.
So it's a risk, but it's also great to have women who love transformation and who then take on the challenge, I would say. And I know that you are taking on the challenge and you're actually putting diversity big on your own flag as well. Which part of the diversity journey that you're going on, which part do you like most? What do you think, where's the future in this debate?
I think what I like the most, but which is also the most difficult, is really making my colleagues, aware that we have an issue. Because, if you are successful companies over more than 70 years, and everything just works out, and then somebody like me just comes in and tells maybe we don't have enough diversity. And I always said we need to be careful only talking about gender. We really have to look at all the dimensions. And there is actually a lot of good which has happened when it comes to people, who have handicaps, who have difficulties because they had suffer an illness or accident. Schaeffler, and actually the owner, Mrs. Schaeffler, for many years, she was actually somebody who promoted that we employ people who have a handicap, while, other companies often only pay the fine because you can pay, fines, and you don't actually, under German law, you target this 5% you should have. So I said we have to really also look at the good parts where we already are strong, and this is also diversity and inclusion. But obviously we have, I would say, the biggest need to change really on the gender side. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. I would have one last question for you. So in our program, all our participants are in parental leave, and the trainings are very much focusing on converting parental skills into leadership skills to actually make this time, the parental leave, a time where you actually acquire new skills and that you can take back and you're stronger than you've been before. Can you share one of your parenting skills that you were able to convert into a leadership skill?
I think obviously efficiency. I think now, my children are almost grown up, but I think all my work life, I needed to be really efficient because I wanted to spend also time, family time. And I had, as everybody, you have lots of things to do, also family-wise, or you want to have social contacts. But the jobs I were in, they also demanded a lot of energy and also timely input. So I think efficiency is really something I'm good at. But I would see much more my human view on each of the persons I'm working with. I think I'm always interested, and it's more my team members who maybe can judge, but I'm always interested also in the individual, in their family needs, how they feel, what they do, if they have special interests. And I think that's this really human-centric view. I think you keep this when you have also children in all age groups and you have a family and you have a social life actually with friends and other parents. And again, because we just talked about the men who should also go much more in parental leave, I think this would be something we really need again, in this German or German speaking environments, that also men really learn more, have more muscles on this and are courageous also to show that they have this human-centric view and that they are interested in other people and their needs and their character, and not so much always driven by KPI and facts, figures, data. I think that would make them much more likable, I guess.
Great. Thank you so much for this fantastic insight and also for sharing some personal notes from your side. It was really insightful, and I would like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.